Okay. We're going to jump on LinkedIn today too. Figure this out here. LinkedIn audio, invite to speech, John Jay. So Thomas.
Good morning, Dom.
I hear you a little bit. Let me pull my thing up a little bit. Get a little better volume from Thomas. Debbie, what's going on today? Story structure, people who pitch, consistency, people that pitch too much. Could you pitch too much? Maybe they should be pitching all the time, Tom. And you're just hypersensitive.
Definitely not. Let's do a little. I came in. It was weird. I like clicked into the event on Clubhouse, and then suddenly I was in there by myself, and then I clicked out and came back in, and there you were. It was very strange. Anyway, good morning, Dom. This is not the smartest guys in the room. Not sure if you already said that. You probably did, but I couldn't hear you.
I don't know that I did, but if I didn't, good morning, Tom. Good morning, John. Good morning, everybody out there. Not the smartest guys in the room. I guess this is the place where me and Tom admit we are not the smartest guys in the room. So we try to meet as many interesting people as we can, experts in all different fields, and say, hey, we're interested in this. Can we ask you a question? Would you share a tip? Would you steer us in the right direction? We might. And today, me and Tom were talking about people pitching, right? And so this is where we started off. We had a little conversation before we jumped on. Tom, am I on the right path here, or what? Go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said I heard you say something about LinkedIn right as I came in, and I just wanted to clarify for everybody. So we stream this all over the internet, right? So we're always live every week. We're always live on Clubhouse. That's where folks can join us if they want to come up and talk and be a part of Not the Smartest Guys in the Room and actually participate in the conversation. But we live stream every week. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter. I'm still going to call it that. I don't care what Elon says. And we're on Twitch. So we stream live across the internet every week, every Wednesday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. This week we were talking about, right before we got on, we were talking about a bunch of stuff, but kind of focused in on again, sort of what's of interest to us. And I think something that came up in my world this morning was thinking about kind of how you structure your content and how you deliver that content in order to provide value for your audience. It came to mind for me this morning because I used to be a member of a local organization here in the Hudson Valley in New York. That's like a networking sort of chamber of commerce style organization. And they just launched a series of podcasts. And I started listening to them. I was kind of excited. It's an idea that I pitched to them myself more than a year ago, and they finally kind of took the ball and ran with it, which I was happy to see. But then, as I started to listen, I realized that they took the ball and then they dropped it right away, because what the podcasts were essentially advertisements for the organization and for their big sponsor members. So basically, one of the episodes I listened to, the sponsor member essentially talked about a big event they have coming up. And that was the whole episode of the podcast, was talking about the big event they have coming up and how this Chamber of Commerce organization is involved. And it basically just felt like a big commercial. And I didn't feel like I was getting any value out of it. I felt like I was being pitched to. And like most people, I don't like being pitched to. I don't like getting the hard sell. Right. And so as Dom and I were talking about that this morning, that basically it evolved to, okay, well, so then when can you sell? Because obviously you have to sell sometimes, right? So like, when can you sell? When can you pitch? Right. And I'm of the mind, I think we've talked about this a bunch of times in here, but I'm of the mind that people should stop putting a call to action on everything. Right? Don't put a call to action on everything. Sometimes a gift has to just be a gift. You can always, or virtually always, include an invitation, right? And an invitation is different than a call to action, right? An invitation is an offer, right? It is not a request. And that's the sort of key difference there. So I'm a fan of the invitation. And sometimes you can include a call to action on a piece of content. If it's it's a piece of advertising that makes sense because that's what advertising's for. But stop for crying out loud, stop putting a call to action on everything. Like, it doesn't need it. Stop doing the hard sell all the time. That's where I'm at, Dom. What do you think?
All right. So to clarify this, so some people might put out a good piece of content. Let's say a picture of Tom and his wife at his wedding, and they look beautiful, and he wants to show that, look at the joy of this moment. And here's where I would have a problem with this, where let's say it's handsome John Jay and his lovely wife, and they're on a beach in Florida down where he lives. And then all of a sudden, I ran across this. An insurance friend of mine they had almost had an accident with her and her family, and they all were safe. And then there was a pitch to why she sells health insurance or life insurance and things like that. And there was a pitch to why it is important with link, with everything, to buy life insurance from her and set up a meeting. In that case, I was with her. I probably could make a connection. So I think I could probably make the connection myself that, wow, that's tough. And I do know that she sells this, but to use that for that pitch, was it the right time? It might have been a turnoff where I'm thinking, that's a little bit sleazy. So that's where I'm at with it. So one, hello everybody, thank you for being here. So Tom, what say you? Go on.
I want to call you to task on that a little bit. So tell me, you told me what you saw, right? But like, tell me what you think about it. Like, what would you have done?
Well, so this is where me and Tom differ. Tom, I don't think he asked enough. And so if you have, like, let's say everybody here that has services or listening, your services have value. You do good things out in the world. So I think you have to let people know you do those things. I think you have to let people know as easily as possible. Let's say I wrote books about whatever, and I think they're valuable. My authors write books. I think those books are valuable. If they don't share the link to a book, like, here's a book I wrote on, let's say Debbie Griffiths, I saw her, she was in here and I think left, but I wrote this book about domestic abuse awareness. I think you or one of your loved ones could get value from this. I think this book could change your life. I think it could help somebody who is hurting. And then all of a sudden you don't share the link. Well, now they have to go find the book. They have to remember to go to Amazon. They have to find it on Barnes & Noble. They have to type in Deborah A. Griffiths rather than they had to remember the title. Man, here you believed in your product, and now you want them to go through all these steps. You want them to remember it. Well, what about later on? What later on in the day? See, I'm passionate about this the other way. Later on in the day, you want them to buy the book, but they forgot it. They were busy. They were in line at, I saw the other day, my son got accepted to Temple. Woo. We might go to Philadelphia and look at the campus. There was one of the world's oldest Italian restaurants there. I saw video of America's oldest Italian restaurant or something like that. I want to find it again. There wasn't link in post. I don't remember name. I took picture of it. So I'm saying, by not having pitch, and I don't think it's a pitch, by not having link, by not saying available here, click here, you could miss a lot of opportunity. And I could name 1,000 times. I'm ready to buy something, and my wife says, Dominick, come upstairs. I need you. We're going now. You said you were going to be ready at 5, and now it's 5:05, and I didn't, and now I forgot about this thing. So that, I think we all, like, who the heck do we think we are that Tom, now I'm going to drill down here. That Tom is so great that your message changed my world so much that I'm going to remember it. I'm going to figure out how to get there. Now, all of a sudden, later on, all these other people had offers, all these other people had good stuff too. You didn't make it easy for me. So now I think I'm going to buy from the other people. If when after me and my wife went somewhere, I still have any money left that I want to spend on whatever I was going to buy prior to that. So how's that, Tom? You pissing me off.
I got to be honest. I kind of like it. I like it when you get riled up, Dom. So look, I totally hear what you're saying. I think it is a bit of a tightrope act, right? Like to find the right balance between over pitching, right, and pitching incessantly, right, versus never pitching. I hear what you're saying. I think the flip side of that is, for a lot of people, and I have this kind of conversation with my clients a lot, right? When we're talking about creating content for my clients, they'll often try to insist that we put website at and I'm talking about like at the end of a commercial, right? Website, address, phone numbers, like et cetera, at the end of a commercial. And my response to them is no, don't do it. All you need is the brand, right? Because no one is going to write down, maybe Dom would, right? But Dom, I think you would admit you're a bit of a Luddite, right? You're a little technologically phobic, right? Technophobic. Dom likes to do things the old-fashioned way. Dom likes to call me rather than like getting on a Zoom, right? He's a phone call kind of guy, right? So other than people like you, Dom, most people, all you need is the brand name, right? Because if they have the brand name, then they have Google in their pocket and they can find you 100 different ways. If you Google Talex Media, you get like 25 results that are all Talex, all my company. You can reach me on social media. You can reach me through my website. You can find my phone number on there through my Google listing, right? Like you can get a hold of me. My email address, like it's all there, right? It's all searchable online. It's all easily available to everybody. If you want, so really all you need to remember is like one of three things, right? You need to remember my name, Tom Langan. You need to remember, or this is not and, this is or the name of my business, Talex Media, right? Or the title of my book, Legendeering. And if you know any of those words, right, my name or the name of my business or the title of my book, you can find all you need to find about it with literally a 10-second Google search. So I hear what you're saying, but I also think that we should take advantage of the fact that things are so readily available online, and most people aren't going to take the time to write something down. They're going to type it into Google on their phone. They're going to type it into the browser on their phone, right? So like you don't really have to do that or provide that kind of information the way I think you used to. I don't know. What do you think, John? John's. Let's see what some of the folks here with us think. John's on the radio. John, what do you think?
When it comes to radio, you have to listen. You have to consider where the consumer is getting your content. So, for Tom is absolutely right that people never write down phone numbers anymore, but they will remember URLs for websites. So we do include that um, because the AOL mentality has taught us that if you don't have click here and text, people won't click. You're going to lose. I think it's 75% of people will stop if you just scroll down below the fold on a website. They won't do that. So the more steps you take to get in touch with you, the harder it is, the more people you lose. So remember, the most important thing is when what's in it for the consumer. Number one. Number two, establishing a brand, top of mind awareness. Number three, how do they contact you? And make it as easy as possible. I have an old saying: if you make it hard for me to give you my money, I won't. I'll repeat that. If you make it too hard for me to give you my money, I won't. I'll go to someone who makes it easier. So put a link in there, put a URL in there, and of course, some audio ads or video ads. Say the domain name if it is short. If it's along GeoCities or one of them, don't get a redirect. Or say Google this name, your brand name, whatever it is, and you'll find it. But give them some instructions on how to find it. But yeah, pitch. But the most important thing is pitch what's in it for the consumer, why they need to check it out, why they need to get more information, why they need to come to your website. Don't try to sell them. Try to get them to take a step closer towards you. That's what I always tell my people.
I think that's great advice, John. I absolutely agree. And I think saying the website can be valuable because even if people remember just a part of it, right? Even if they don't remember the whole website, if they remember most of it, or they get the name of the company right, but maybe they get the syntax or the punctuation in the website slightly wrong. If you have like an underscore or something like that in your web address, they can still find you, right? If they get it mostly right, you're going to pop up on a Google search if they don't get it exactly right. So I think that's great advice. And again, John, I knew this going into asking you this question, but John is always audience first, right? Just like any good broadcaster, right? Always audience first. And I think that shows, and I knew that you would again kind of focus on what's in it for the audience. What can the audience get out of this, right? And the reason I mentioned that podcast series at the beginning of this conversation was because that's exactly what they got wrong. And what I see so many other organizations and businesses get wrong is they talk about themselves and they put themselves first. What they wanted to do out of that podcast was sell tickets to this event they were talking about, this festival they were talking about. They didn't, and it was bold and obvious, right? That was the goal. It was a 30 or 25-minute podcast infomercial about this event and the organizers of this event basically talking about how great the event is and the history of the event and why you should go to the event. And it was sort of like, okay, if I wasn't already interested in the event, what is this doing for me? Like, why should I care? Why should I listen? And I didn't listen to the whole thing. I skipped around a little bit and then I got out of there because it wasn't doing it for me. So I think you nailed it, John. What do you think, Dom? How's is your internet being weird over there? Are you good?
Why am I pausing periodically? Is that what you got going on here?
You were freezing up a little bit there, yeah. You're freezing up a little bit. Your mouth is a little bit out of sync sometimes with the video.
Yeah, I definitely see. I'm seeing something weird because I'm looking over I got two computers going. One, Tom looks good. The other, it's like Tom's about a second behind what he's saying. So who knows what's going on here? So I'll try to get it fixed as we go throughout here. But John, back to John Jay. John, you do when you share like, hey, I got the coolest show about this person came on and they really laid out a great story about what they did in the line of duty here and how they saved two people. You do share where people can find the show, right?
Well, like I just did a post for a brand new episode of podcast, social media. And here's what it says. Prosecuting human trafficking, forced sex slaves and prostitution. Special episode and the link with the artwork. So there's a difference between digital and print compared to audio. When I do the audio ads or for anything, it's never about who my guest is. It's never about them. It's always about the topics, the subject, what's in it for consumer. Then I get into the guest. Because here's my line of thinking. I want people to get their attention and for them to consume the show. And from there, they can listen and get more information about who the guest is and what they do. I don't try to force feed them the guest and their brand unless they're a paid advertiser. I don't do it. My goal is to get them to listen to the show first.
Good stuff. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, man, I'm with John. I'm co-signing on
co-signing. That's a Dr. Tachi thing.
Yeah, I know. I'm stealing
We used to say co-signing my BS. That's what we used to say.
What was that,
John? That's what I'm
doing,
John. That's what I'm doing this morning.
Co-signing someone's BS. I was being polite.
Oh, okay. I thought you said BF. I'm like, oh, you're best friends. Okay, I got it. Okay. All right. This is not the smartest guys in the room. We do this every Wednesday. Every other Wednesday, I have internet problems. That's how our life rules. So my life works. Whatever. Okay. So hey, Dragon, Jason, Julie, what's going on? Everybody watching, listening, however you're doing it, we appreciate you. We're talking about consistency. We're talking about pitching. We're talking about things that make us mad. Hey, Julie, so in your world, how do you dance between a pitch and when you're helping people get publicity? How do you how launch their brands and things like that? How do you walk that line of what is a pitch versus what is, oh, this person's just this is a vanity project? What's your answer there?
I think, thanks, guys. I think there's a time and place for everything, right? The pitching, there's not always a place for that. So what I do is build authority on your brand. So if we're looking at Tom's brand or Dom's brand, I want you to be the authority figure in whatever you do. And that's how I try to frame it. And that makes it for an easier entryway into pitching. So, Tom was talking about Googling himself. So I Googled Tom. And what he has a business. And I want to see testimonials on how amazing Tom is. I want to see those other people speaking to how, sorry, my dogs, of course, are going to go crazy right now. And I want to see how he is the authority in media and production. And same as Tom, John, everybody on stage. So building your authority, I think, first and foremost, builds the foundation to, doing the easy entryway into pitching. And my dogs agree. And they're just barking at the sunshine today.
All right, good stuff, Julie. We appreciate you. Tom, I switched from regular Wi-Fi to, I switched from being connected to Wi-Fi. So who knows? Okay.
That does not seem better. You're freezing up all over the place.
All right, this is bad. Okay.
The hardwired connection is always going to be better than Wi-Fi.
All right, let me push it back off. Okay, well, something was weird. Although my wife was having problems, so who knows?
Well, if your wife is having problems too, then it's one of two things. It's probably the router, or it might be your internet service provider. In which case, switching between Wi-Fi and your Ethernet connection isn't going to do anything for you.
All right, I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
I know. I'm just telling you.
Okay, so let's
could always do a hotspot too if it's really that
she
bad.
has a hotspot up there, and I'm directly wired into this thing. So who knows? Yeah. Howard,
Right.
I tried to click on Howard and get Howard up here. So let's go on here. Okay, so go on, Tom.
Let's not give Dom other suggestions for how to connect to the internet. That's going to confuse the matter.
Yeah, I'm just going to go up on top of my house with a couple poles and.
Before you know, we're gonna have Dom falling off the roof because he's trying to stick an antenna on the house for some reason. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I first of all, thanks for looking me up, Julie. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it's important that you position yourself as an authority in your subject area, and there's a ton of ways to do that. Testimonials are one. Right. The content that you produce and you put out is another. I read an interesting thing yesterday from somebody who's an influencer on LinkedIn. Actually, his name is Liam. He helps people build their brands on LinkedIn. And one of the things he talked about was some data that LinkedIn actually put out, essentially saying the more you comment, if you comment just once a week, that it triples the likelihood of people seeing your profile. And actually it triples the amount of exposure your profile gets. I forget exactly how it was phrased, and I'm saying it wrong. But yeah, so like there's a ton of ways to establish yourself as an authority in a different subject area. I don't personally like I get tons of those LinkedIn, like, contribute to this article prompts. I don't particularly like them. I think the questions that they ask are usually very sort of trite and honestly bizarre. I know that they're crafted by AI, and I think they're using it as a way to train their AI, and I don't really like those articles, so I haven't contributed to any of them yet because I find that they're just sort of a resting place for not very good advice. And I don't want to really sort of be in that mix with a bunch of other people who are giving bad advice. So I don't use that. But yeah, there's tons of ways to do it. Testimonials are one, but there's 100 other ways. Dom, what do you think?
Tom, I don't know. Maybe because I broke this rib, I'm a little feisty today. Like I'm sitting here, I'm in a little bit of pain, and I'm more not in the mood than usually. And not that I don't love everybody here. I'm just things that like this bone that's sticking in my back and jabbing me right now. I feel like certain things I see on social media jab me similar ways. And so I can't understand people that never comment, never like, never contribute to somebody else's community. We talked about building, like a lot of what we talk about is building community. So imagine in a community, if I went, like I live in a neighborhood, if I'm out with my wife walking and I wave at people and they never waved back, waved at them, never waved back, waved at them, never. How you doing today? And they never, eventually I'm not waving back. And then then I'm like, this guy's a jerk. I passed this guy's house 100 times and he doesn't even say hi. And so why is social media, I remember you used to call it a virtual handshake. You used to say that a lot when we first started hanging out. Tom was like, this is a virtual handshake, a virtual introduction. So here's social media, somebody else. So let's say I work with authors and storytellers, to think that you are putting out this book, something you believe in, and you want everybody to like it, everybody to share it, everybody to talk about it. But in your community, you haven't waved at anybody. You haven't said hello to them. You haven't said, "Ooh, I like your lawn. I like those new shutters you put on. I like your post." So I really think, I think all of us should be spending more time in that community, in those communities, commenting. I almost wonder who's per week. Are you putting out more posts or are you engaging more? Are you in that? Tom, what's your answer right now? And don't lie to me.
Right now, this week, I am turning the tide on that. So
Okay.
if you had asked me that question last week, the answer would have been that I'm posting more than I'm engaging with other people's content, right? This week, I'm turning the tide on that. And what I mean by that is, so after reading that article, I commented on the post. We had a little back and forth, and I was like, you know what? Let me just test this, right? Let me just try it. So I was like, it can't hurt me to engage more with other people and with content I find interesting particularly on LinkedIn, but sort of across social media, right? It can't hurt to engage more. I always try to do, I think there's two ways to engage with content, right? On social media, like there's a passive engagement and there's active engagement is kind of how I think of it. And the passive is like the like or the thumbs up or whatever, right? Like that's a very kind of like passive. It's super quick. Like you hit the button and you keep scrolling, right? I kind of look at that as more of a passive engagement, right? The active engagement is when you stop, you read the full post, and if it sparks something, you comment, right? And I'm trying to be more active. And so yesterday I read this post from this guy, Liam, on LinkedIn. And when I read that post, I was like, okay, let me try this. I commented on his post. I commented on a couple other posts, and wouldn't you know it, I got like 4 connection requests just from one of those comments that I put on someone else's post, right? I got some replies to that comment that I put on someone else's post. And I'm actually now going to end up having coffee with somebody in New York who wants to bounce some ideas off of me for a project they're working on, right? And who knows where that might lead. And it's all I did was I saw something, I had a thought about it, right? I had an opinion. I posted that opinion in a comment and boom, right? It popped off. So very anecdotal evidence, right? But like in the near term, I was like, okay, this is works, right? Like this, all of a sudden I'm getting more engagement, more people are going to see what I'm doing. Because what happens is with LinkedIn, every time you comment on something, it gets shared to your network. So when you comment on things, when you share things, when you like things, it all gets shared to your network, right? So more likely that more people are going to see the content that I'm putting out that I'm hoping to deliver value with. So yeah, so I mean, that's the name of my newsletter that I started on LinkedIn 5 weeks ago. It's called Value First, right? Like that's the idea, is I want to just dump value into the world. So yeah, so I saw huge evidence of it, and then to put it into regular practice, right? I made reminders on my calendar. So I have like sort of a posting schedule for the things that I post on different days of the week, right? That I've kind of scheduled out, and I've made a plan, and it's something I can commit to and stick to. And now in between those days when I'm putting up those posts, I have a reminder to comment on 3 pieces of content, right? At a minimum, and I've already found myself doing more of this on LinkedIn, but like at a minimum on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, to go through and just find 3 things where I can say something about a piece of content. And it's literally like you can use those sort of like, I heard somebody refer to it as like scraps of time, that we have throughout the day, where you've got like 3 minutes in between meetings, or you've got 5 minutes, before the next thing starts, or you just finished something and you're about to leave and you've got a couple of minutes before you need to be out the door, right? Like those little time scraps that we have throughout the day, I'm just using those to engage more actively on social media. And I'll let you know, like, as this plays out. I mean, this is always a long game, right? There's no quick fix, there's no immediate turnaround. So I'll let you know how it goes. But yeah, no, if you'd asked me that question last week, my answer would have been not really. But asking me that question today, my answer is I am engaging as much as I'm posting, if not more, and I hope to continue to do that moving forward. So yeah, so that's my answer. That's my experience so far. Jason, what about you? I see you posting a lot on social media and sharing a lot of content. Because of your interest in Stoicism, and the practices that you talk about all the time. So, how about you? Are you? I'll pass Dom's question to you. Are you engaging as much as you're posting?
I'm experimenting. I'm a scientist in the lab right now. I'm not really posting too much, just for the temporary, because I want to get down the professional of the business part that I'm working on for myself. So having the framework and the blueprints, but I've experimented so often, and I've tried different methods, different things. I've gone with just to watch it, look for specific topics, observe how people engage, and how people meet me. But there's been a lot of different pivots in this conversation about pitching, and the point about pitching is like, do you read the conversation, or do you read your own thoughts? And it's very important to understand, be very mindful of how you read your thoughts into the conversation. um, are you inviting people to be interested? Like, if you look at many of your friends and your colleagues, do you go and consume their stuff? Right. I love being here on Not the Smartest Guys in the Morning. It's a great start for Wednesday morning. It's a great thought provoker to, like, be mindful. I also like enjoying, on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons, I'll go listen to Podcast Pros, and there's different aspects. Sometimes the aspects are repeated and rehearsed and practiced and rehearsed again and just practiced again, and just, you get it better and better through your consistency. But it's like the way that, when you, all these platforms of information, whether it be social media or just period media, it's based on getting someone's attention and keeping it. In the words of John J. Wiley, punch them in the mouth and see how they react. But after they do that, making sure that effect doesn't wear off too much to where they just leave, like, oh, this is just, I'm out of this. So when we look at, what are you there for? What is really your end game? Is your future state in alignment with your current state of being? If you're working on it and you're getting there and you're getting the points that you want, you're getting the returns as you give and receive the exchanges, then you're good. So I have right now no expectations. I'm really in the seat of the observer, the learner. And when it's time for me to be the performer, and I do, that's what Stoicism really kind of, it touches on. I don't have to be the expert. I just have to be the doer. And when I become the doer and better and better and better, eventually, yeah, expertise comes. But it's always in that framework of, like, I'm developing the knowledge to become wise, to use it as my tool when it's called for. Otherwise, I've seen people post and post and post, and a lot of their posts just go over my head. I'm not interested, and the last point I'll end with is like, I was in the Podcast Pros room yesterday, and I was talking to Julie the day before, and she shared with her obsessed post interview about a lady with autism. I can't remember her name, but what spoke to me when I watched the whole interview on YouTube was the way that this lady frameworks her answers. And I'm like, that's just like me. There's times direct, long-winded, but I felt like, man, I could resonate with this. And once that feeling of experience and resonates with, Julie didn't pitch me. She just told me it was an indirect pitch. It was like, hey, this is something you might be interested in. It appealed to my interest. And now I'm excited when I listen to the whole thing. I actually watched it a second time just so I didn't miss things. Because sometimes we get in that busy state doing other things. And I didn't want to miss things that this lady has accomplished. A marathoner. She's an attorney. She's a therapist. I mean, I resonate with, I want to help people who feel who they're misunderstood. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that answers your question, Tom.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jason. I mean, I think that brought up an interesting point. What you just described that Julie did was, in my mind, the way I kind of interpreted what you were saying, the way I understood what you were saying was that what Julie did was she didn't pitch you, she extended an invitation. And we were talking about that earlier. It might have been before you got here this morning, but we were talking about the difference of that right at the beginning. And I think it's a very crucial difference, right? It lands very differently. When you think about it, it's sort of the difference between somebody saying to you, hey, if you want to be anybody, you need to come to this party, versus, hey, if you're free on Saturday, why don't you come by the house? We're having some people over, right? Like, essentially you're saying the same, like essentially the outcome you're looking for is the same. You want the person to come to the party, but the way you say it, the way you present it is very different, right? One is a request and the other is an offer, right? And I think there's a big difference with the way those land. And I think, especially I get this all the time on LinkedIn in particular, right? I get invitation requests from people. I select okay or yes, right? I accept their invitation to connect on LinkedIn, and then immediately in my inbox or in my messages on LinkedIn, up pops a message. Here's what I sell. Click here to set an appointment. And I'm like, I never click here, never, and I never will. Like, even if it's something I'm interested in, I'm not going to, just because of how you presented it, right? If they sent me a message and said, hey, Tom, like, thanks so much for connecting. Here's what I do. If I can ever be of service to you, if I can ever help you, if you're ever in need of services like this or anybody in your network, please feel free to reach out anytime. I'd love to help you out, or love to help you and your community out or your network out, right? Like, that's a totally different animal, right? So I'm always a fan of the invitation. I am almost never a fan of the pitch, right? The pitch is a very specific thing, and it needs, like, I feel like you have to be invited to pitch, right? Somebody needs to give you a clear indication that they're receptive to your pitch before you try to sell them, right? Because that's what they're saying, is like, that's what you're doing, is that, like, that's what a pitch is, right? A pitch is an attempt at making a sale, right? And so if you're going to do that, the person you're doing it to needs to be receptive, right? And I think all good salespeople will tell you, and this is coming up a lot recently, and Dom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm interviewing salespeople right now for Talex, right? And I've had several conversations with one individual who I think is a great fit, and I really am excited about and look forward to working with once we iron out the particulars and stuff. But we're moving in a very positive direction. And in a conversation with this person, we talked about their approach to sales, and one of the things they said was that the best relationships they have in sales, and they used that word, and that was super important to me, but the best relationships they have in sales with customers come from really listening to their customers and only offering us a saleable solution, right? Only offering a solution that they sell when the client or the prospective client has made it clear that they are in need of something that you sell, right? Like that they've listened long enough that they've been able to turn around and say, okay, I hear what you're saying. Here's the problem you're describing to me. Here's the solution we have for that problem. If you're interested, let's have another conversation about what that looks like, how we could implement it, so on and so forth. But like their description of their best sales relationships are ones that come from listening first and only offering a pitch when the prospective client has clearly said to them, I need this, right? And then they have a pitch or a saleable product that fits into that need or solves that problem. So yeah, there's a huge difference, I think, between the pitch and the invitation. I'm always good with an invitation. You can invite me to anything. I may not show up for everything, right? Just like anybody else. I don't think it's reasonable to expect everybody you invite to show up to everything, but I'm always up for an invitation. You gotta wait until I ask for a pitch to give one to me for me to be receptive to it. Does that make sense?
Well, I don't you guys think that also in every single conversation, no matter what you have, no matter who it is, it could be the closest friend or just a part-time colleague or whatever. It's where's the point of entry in the conversation? What are you talking? I mean, if it's like a stumble, like, hey, I came across you having lunch or, something, or we came to, let's just say an event, and what are the friendly pivots that you both agree on? Where do you find agreement on, and where do you not know somebody at? And when you take the moment to observe and you say, like, you have something fresh in your mind, oh, I got my latest episode, or I got my book, right? And let's just use Tom's book, Legendaring. You come across me and I'm somebody who reads books, but it's like, look, I don't know if you've bought a copy, I mean, how you frame the lead in a sale, really, that's what it is, the pitch. When you frame the lead, it's a very fine art to get someone interested in what your thought process is. You could be excited for it. It's like, okay, well, what are the key points in legendaring that would appeal to me? Well, what do? I work on stoicism. What's Tom's journey? What can you take from that? And the friendly connectors that leads into a conversation, sometimes right out the gate. Sometimes some people it's very subtle, but how you lead a conversation, and this goes for all across sales. Every salesman knows this. I worked in waiting tables, and I've also sold cars in my life. But at the end of the day, it's like you're engaging for a reason. You're coming in the gates. You're there. Try to be observant about yourself and what are they saying? What are the great connectors, the last conversation you left off with, maybe for someone familiar? And how does that last conversation lead into a new perspective conversation? So the art of conversations, the lines we tell ourselves versus the lines we're telling other people could be different, but how can you get them to work together? And that is very difficult for many people because people are interested in only their interests, right? But when you invite them to be interested in something that they align with and they're good with, or maybe it's something you don't even know about, it's how you angle, like playing pool, the English that you use on the ball. When you hit that cue ball, either you're pushing it too hard or you're angling it too much, but how it gets to the next point, what happens is what happens. Just be okay with how it happens, and almost every situation is recoverable. I'll end with that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, brother. Good stuff.
Thanks, Jason. And for the record, if you do read my book, please share your thoughts with me. I would love to hear them.
I'm going to repitch you to that. What are 3 points that you know about me that I could connect with your book?
Oh man, I mean,
He'll
honestly,
he'll
brought
give
that
it to
into
you.
the
He'll give it to you.
conversation. Let
He'll
let
get,
this is
hold
a
on.
real
yeah,
example.
hold on,
He'll
hold
give
on.
it to you in the notes, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
want
but
to. I don't want to
it's
spend
an
too much
example.
time. I don't want to spend too much. I don't want to spend too much
I
time
can
on this.
help.
But sorry, Julie, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the connections between 72 and Tom. Well, 72 is a creative. He's trying to build out his media profile, and he's interested in how to do it with reciprocity. There you go.
Well done. Good stuff.
Appreciate
Go
it.
up,
Thanks,
Tom.
Julie.
Well,
Yeah,
well done.
And Jason, ultimately, here's how I would sum it up. Like Legendeering is all about building real relationships with a community. And if that's something that interests you, if you want to build relationships with people and build relationships with a community, then I think it's a good book for you to read. And I would love to hear your thoughts.
It was a live example what happens in a real conversation. I mean, like that is just like when you come across some, oh yeah, oh, I'm into stoicism, I'm into community, I'm into building things. But it's just like how that question, like if someone like me who's a book nerd, that can happen, but you never know how those pivots take place.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, appreciate it. Dom, what say you? What you got,
Let's
buddy?
say my rib is still hurting, man. So let's just say
He's got battle wounds.
Yeah, I got battle wounds, man. Let's see today. Let's see. Okay, the bruise is, if anybody watching on live stream or anything like that, the bruise is nice and bluer today. Would you say?
It's a good little subdural hematoma you got going on there,
Okay,
buddy.
yeah, something's going on there. Hey, but back to Jason. Jason, I just want to point out that he'll say sometimes like he watched this video, or he'll contact me and just, hey, I watched this and heard this question. I appreciate it, man. And so when I have the opportunities, like Jason does rooms on Clubhouse, I check out a lot of his rooms because here's a guy, he supports me, he checks out stuff. If I can reciprocate reciprocate, right? Well, sure, I'd love to, man. And you've given me 10 times more than I could ever give you. So thank you. So back to that earlier conversation about, imagine people put out things that they believe in. I'm going to share that my daughter accomplished this, that they wrote a book, that they ran, that Tom finished his Ironman, that that Julie hosted Creative Con, that John hit 2 million views. If you were to say, man, that kicks ass, I wonder if any of those people would say, wow, I put a lot of time into that. And you saying to me that kicked ass meant a lot. Somebody just sent me a message the other day about a book I wrote, and a specific point in it. I'm like, wow, that meant a lot. And they went out of their way to do that. Meant a lot to me. So, all right, not the smartest guys in the room. Showed you a bruise. That wasn't show and tell. So we are talking about consistency. Tom, give us a rundown of what we are talking about.
Well, I want to actually talk about consistency. Get your show and tell ready, because one of the things that we're trying to be more consistent about is the formatting that we follow here, right? It's one of those things. It's this room. I like that we don't overstructure the conversation, right? Like we don't have talking points right now. We don't have a plan for how the conversation is going to go in advance. We let the conversation evolve, and we're not going to change that. One of the things that we are trying to do, or a couple of the things that we're trying to do going forward, is we're trying to stay a little bit more focused. So we're trying to pick sort of a topic or an area and stay in that area rather than kind of going, completely in a totally different direction and ending up somewhere entirely separate from where we started. So that's one of the things we're doing. The other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to keep things to about an hour. Because I think we're asking a lot for people to stick around for an hour and a half, and it's just one of those things too that I think I think this will be a better experience for everybody here watching and listening and participating if we stay a little bit more focused and a little bit more concise. So that's what we're trying to do. So that's why I was prompting Dom to go ahead and get his show and tell ready, so that we could stay on topic with that. And then we got a few more minutes here. We're about 10 minutes away from wrapping things up today, so we got a few more minutes here after the show and tell, and then we'll wrap things up, and we'll see you guys next week. So that's the plan. That's what we're working on, what we're trying to do better as not the smartest guys in the room. So Dom, what do you got? You got your show and tell. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, man, I'm ready. Thank you for this show and tell opportunity. Okay, so this week, what was it? Monday, I went up to film for Bikes and Hikes. We went up to film the eclipse. And so first, I'm going to tell you about the eclipse, but I'm going to put my little show and tell on here. Well, I tell you about the eclipse. Okay, so I will no longer be able to see you, but I'm going to tell you about my fancy goggles on here. And we went up to the eclipse. And we went to Erie, Presque Isle, they call it Presque Isle. I'm going to always struggle to say that. And it's a little peninsula off of Erie. And they said that Erie had about 250,000 people there. And this was great. There was animal shelters hosting eclipse party. There was golf courses hosting eclipse party. There was all these other places hosting eclipse party. So like we talk about sometimes, well, when you're building community and things like that, everybody was going to the eclipse, hundreds of thousands of people. But maybe if I'm into rescuing dogs, and the animal shelter had an eclipse party, maybe I'm going to go there. When there was parties on the beach, maybe I'm going to go there. When it was party on the farm, party at the winery, all these other choices you had to go see the eclipse. So my show and tell today is these spectacular glasses that I stared right up at the sun like this. And it was beautiful. And I saw this eclipse going, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people on this beach. But the coolest thing about it was there was black, white, gay, straight, brown, yellow, big, little, tattooed, preppy, all on the beach together. Nobody was mad at anybody. There was no division. It was hundreds of people appreciating this awesome moment with goofy glasses on, just like I have right here. And when it all went black, we were all in wonder. And that's what I thought. I didn't do enough research going into it. So I'm thinking, wow, this is awesome. It went black and you could stare right at it, take your glasses off and look at it. And then, so all of a sudden, when it was black as can be, this cool ring around the whole sun or moon or both of them came out. And then the crowd of all these different diverse people that were all happy to be there all went, ah, and we all had that moment together. And I mean, it was something I didn't expect it to be that awesome. And it was 10 times cooler than I ever expected. And so my little glasses here, I am pleased to have them. And you can't see anything out of them. But they were epic when that sun was crossing and we were all just staring up in the sky. So, Tom, that's my not too concise show and tell for today. What do you think?
I like it. We didn't go anywhere to watch the eclipse here in the Hudson Valley in New York. We were in the path, but we got about, I think, 92% coverage. So we didn't see the full corona, that circle around the moon as it eclipses the sun. We didn't get that full corona experience. But really it ended up like the sun ended up looking sort of like a harvest moon, sort of that sliver of a moon at one point. So it was pretty cool when that was at the the most extreme part of the eclipse. So it was pretty cool. It was a little cloudy here, which was a little bit of a bummer. So it was a little covered up, but yeah, it was a good time. It was interesting to see. It dramatically slowed down the amount of email that I was getting on Monday, which was interesting. Like I saw a huge nosedive in like email traffic on Monday afternoon, which was kind of interesting. As everybody was using the eclipse as an excuse or a reason to not be at work. Which is fine, by the way. I have no, not trying to throw any shade on that. Get it? Not trying to throw any shade on that, but yeah, it was interesting to see that dramatic downturn in work. I saw producer Jemmy is here. We have Jamie Hill here too. Jamie, of course, if you have anything to add on the ideas of pitching versus invitations, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about today. So feel free, flash your mic if you want to add anything to that conversation. You've been here for a bunch of it. And then I saw we have producer Jemmy down in the audience. I'd be curious to hear her thoughts about podcasting and how to position your podcast and make sure you're delivering for your audience. If she wants to come up quick, we got a few minutes left before we wrap this up. So we'll go to Jamie. If you got anything to add, now's your chance before we jump into a wrap up.
Sure, I'll take 1 minute in that. Basic, easy one for me. Clubhouse, networking. Look what it's done over the years, as we spoke when we first met, making these meetings, and coming to meet everybody. That's the best networking ever. So I'll end on that note.
Okay, so Jamie says networking, showing up, consistency. That hits our other consistency too. You can't just go anywhere one time and think like the takers that we talked about on social media. Here, I'm going to show up. I haven't been there, so I'm so passionate about this. I haven't been there for the last 3 years. Now I'm launching podcasts. Now I'm launching book. Now I'm selling vitamin supplements. Now I'm selling whatever, and I'm there all the time. I want you in my community. Bye. So you can't do it. It doesn't work, Tom.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you know my mantra, right? Like, lead with value, always try to give more than you take. And that's like sort of in direct contradiction to and contravention to my that philosophy that I try to live by. So I'm 100% with you. You always have to try to give more than you take. You always should leave leave a situation better than how you found it, right? And yeah, the people who are just running around taking, every once in a while they'll give you a little a like or a follow or whatever on something you post, but then all of a sudden they're sending you invitations up, down, left, right, and center. They're tagging you in every post they put up to try to sort of force you to engage. I'm just not interested. Like, every time I see that, the more that happens to me with somebody, the less likely I am to ever engage in their content. I get the idea of tagging people in content when you think it's pertinent to them. But also I see people using that as a way to try to force engagement. Like, hey, you're tagged in this, like, you should engage with it. And it's sort of like, yeah, you tagged me. I had nothing to do with that, and I'm not interested, so I'm not going to engage. But that's just my stubbornness, my obstinacy kicking in. I kind of can't help myself. Becky and I are very much alike in that way. If somebody tells you should do something, our like sort of gut reaction is to go, oh yeah, watch me not do it.
I got to be the heel. Sometimes I'm like a kid on Christmas, where sometimes I'll get tagged in something and I'm like, ooh, Tom wants me to see this. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm in, like you're saying, I'm involved in this some way. Like, Tom recognized there's something of value here that we were together and part of. So that Tom doesn't do this to me, but I look at it sometimes. I'm like, ooh, I see that notification and my eyes get big. I get that dopamine, and then I go to it, and then I'm like, wah, 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 600 people tagged, and it's like, you can join my 30-day exercise routine. Well, I got a broken rib. I don't want to be part of it. So, all right, go on, Tom. That's all I got. What do you got for us?
All right, man. Well, here we go. So we're in the interest of staying concise, we're going to try to wrap this up real quick. We're at an hour, so I think it's time to do that. So, we started this whole conversation off today talking about sort of creating content for your audience and like, does everything need to be a pitch? And I think the consensus that we've sort of come to, if I'm reading the room correctly, is that no, it doesn't really always need to be a pitch, right? That sometimes pitching is okay. There have been some different opinions on like when you should pitch or how often you should pitch, and that's variety is the spice of life, or as I like to say, variety makes life spicy. But variety is the spice of life. So all opinions and thoughts are welcome here. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but I'll tell you where I land on this one more time. And that is that everything doesn't need to be a pitch, right? Not everything you put out, not all of your content needs to have a call to action, but it can always include an invitation, right? So think about that. The next time you create something for your community, the next time you deliver value for your audience, feel free to always include an invitation, but be wary of the pitch slap, which is what some people have been calling the phenomena on LinkedIn, where you send a connection request and then immediately follow that connection request with a pitch to sell your products or services. So always include an invitation, but beware of walking around pitch slapping people, because I think you're gonna end up burning more bridges doing that than you get across. So just something to bear in the back of your mind. Always look to lead with value. That's what I always try to do. I'm not always successful, but I'm a huge believer that intention matters. And if you always try to lead with value, if you always try to give more than you take, then that will be taken into account. It's a little bit like it's the thought that counts idea. So that's all I got for this week. Thank you for being here with Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. We're going to keep doing this this way, try to keep things concise, keep things a little bit tight, keep things a little bit more focused. We're also going to start inviting more folks to join us on LinkedIn and participate there. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, feel free to get in the comments there, ask a question, share your thoughts. We'd love to have you guys engage with us and engage with the opportunity there. You can always join us on Clubhouse as well, and get up on stage and actually add to the conversation. We love to have you folks do that. And that's all I got. So for Dom, I'm Tom. This is Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. Thank you all for being here this week. We really appreciate you guys. We love you guys. And next time there's a solar eclipse, don't forget to wear your glasses. Do not look directly at the sun. Thanks, everybody. We love you guys. We'll see you next week, Wednesday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, all over the internet, in Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. Till then, have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. Love you guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.